The night sky was broken. The moons of Kareth hung like cracked glass, their light falling weakly through thick red clouds. The air smelled of smoke, ash, and something rotten. The land stretched out in ruins, burned trees, broken towers, and strange bones half buried in black sand. Somewhere in that silence walked a human, alone. His name was Eli Ward, a soldier once, but now just a survivor. His boots left faint prints in the dust, and every sound, every whisper of wind made his heart tighten. He had been walking for days, following a signal that blinked on a small device tied to his wrist. It was supposed to lead him to other humans, but so far, he had found nothing. No camp, no voices, only this dying world filled with shadows and strange cries. Then, he heard it again, a sound that made his blood run cold. A scream. It wasn't human. It was high and sharp like glass breaking underwater. He stopped, gripping the rusted blade at his side. The sound came again, closer this time. It wasn't just pain. There was fear in it. Something, or someone, was being hunted. Eli's heart told him to move on, to keep walking, to stay alive. But his legs didn't listen. He turned toward the sound, stepping carefully through the ruins. The broken moonlight shimmered on puddles of black water, and in the distance he saw them, shapes moving fast, crawling low, monsters. They looked like wolves, but larger, skinless, their muscles shining wet in the red light. Their eyes glowed yellow and their teeth dripped steam. 3 of them circled something trapped between the rocks. Eli ducked behind a wall and squinted. It was a girl, small, thin, her skin pale silver, hair glowing faint blue. An alien, no doubt. She looked young, maybe 13 or 14 in human years. Her arm was bleeding and she tried to crawl away, but her leg was caught under a broken metal beam. Eli's breath caught in his chest. He should leave. These creatures hunted in packs. One sound could bring more. But when the first monster lunged toward her, something inside him snapped. He ran. The creatures turned as he charged, blade in hand, shouting to draw their attention. The first beast leaped at him and Eli ducked, driving the blade deep into its neck. Hot, dark blood sprayed across his arm. The second monster slashed, claws cutting his shoulder, but he kicked it backward, hitting it with a piece of metal pipe. The girl screamed again as the third beast climbed the rocks toward her. "Stay down," he shouted, swinging wildly. Pain burned through his body, but adrenaline drowned it. He drove the blade into the last monster's chest, twisting until it stopped moving. The ground shook as its heavy body fell beside him. For a moment, there was only silence again, thick, heavy silence. Eli dropped to his knees, breathing hard. He looked toward the girl. She was trembling, eyes wide and glowing faintly. Her lips moved, whispering something in a language he couldn't understand. When he stepped closer, she flinched and raised her hands as if to defend herself. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you," she didn't answer. Her gaze darted between him and the bodies of the dead monsters. Eli knelt beside her and carefully lifted the metal beam from her leg. She cried out in pain but didn't pull away. "You're safe now," he said, though even he didn't believe it. The monsters were dead, yes, but for how long? The smell of blood would draw others soon. He wrapped a strip of cloth around her bleeding arm. She watched him with frightened, curious eyes. Her skin was strange, almost luminous, like she carried starlight beneath it. She whispered again. One word this time, quiet but clear. "Why?" Eli looked at her, surprised. "Why what?" "Why save me?" she asked, voice shaking. He glanced around at the darkness creeping through the ruins. Because nobody else would. For a second, their eyes met, human brown and alien blue. And in that look, something wordless passed between them. Fear, confusion, hope. Then a low growl came from behind them. Eli froze. He turned his head slowly. In the fog beyond the rocks, more glowing eyes appeared. 10, maybe more. "Move," he said quickly, lifting the girl into his arms. She was light, too light. Her body trembled against his chest as he ran. The growls turned into howls, and the sound chased him through the ruins like thunder. He didn't look back. He ran until his lungs burned and his vision blurred. Ahead he saw a gap in the cliff, a cave. It was dark, deep, maybe dangerous, but right now it was their only chance. He stumbled inside, setting the girl down near the wall. Outside the howls grew louder, then stopped. Only the echo of his heartbeat filled the cave. Eli leaned against the cold stone, catching his breath. The girl looked up at him, whispering something again, something that sounded like thanks. He nodded slightly, gripping his blade tighter. The wind outside hissed through the cracks, and he thought he saw movement in the shadows deeper in the cave. They had escaped the monsters outside. But something was already waiting for them inside. The cave smelled of damp stone and dust. Drops of water fell from the ceiling, echoing in the silence like a slow clock. Eli stood with his back to the entrance, blade ready, listening. The monsters outside had gone quiet, but silence was not safety. He knew hunters often waited, circling like wolves until the prey grew tired. The alien girl sat against the wall, hugging her knees. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the dark, a soft light that painted her face in pale blue. She looked fragile, almost like a ghost, but her eyes stayed fixed on the shadows deeper in the cave. Eli noticed the way her breath caught, the way her fingers dug into the stone. She was afraid. Not of him this time, but of something else. "What is it?" he whispered. Her lips moved. The words came slow, heavy with accent. "Not safe. Here." Eli turned, his blade rising. At first he saw nothing, only stone and dripping water. Then he heard it. A scraping sound like claws dragging across rock. A shape shifted in the dark. Something long and twisted crawled along the wall. "Stay behind me," he said, though he doubted she understood. The creature moved closer, its body sliding like a snake but with too many legs. Thin, jointed limbs that clung to stone. Its eyes glowed faint red and its mouth opened sideways, showing rows of teeth. It clicked and hissed, tasting the air. Eli stepped forward, blocking the girl with his body. He gripped the blade tighter. His muscles ached from the fight outside, but he forced himself to stand tall. If he showed weakness, the creature would sense it. The alien girl whispered something again, her voice trembling but firm. Eli didn't understand, but her tone was urgent, like a warning. The creature lunged. Eli swung his blade, sparks flying as steel hit stone. The monster screeched, pulling back, then lashed out with its claws. Eli ducked, the claws ripping a line across the wall behind him. He stabbed upward, cutting one of its legs. Black liquid splattered, burning his skin where it touched. The beast screamed, the sound so sharp it made his ears ring. Eli staggered back, but the girl suddenly raised her hands. For a moment, light flared from her palms. Soft, blue-white, like a star flickering. The creature froze, its body trembling as if the light burned it. "Now!" she cried. Eli didn't hesitate. He drove his blade deep into the creature's chest. It writhed, shrieking before collapsing to the ground. The smell of rot filled the cave, and then there was only silence again. Breathing hard, Eli leaned against the wall. The girl lowered her glowing hands, the light fading until only her faint silver glow remained. She looked at him, her eyes wide, almost fearful of what she had just done. "You helped me?" Eli said between breaths. She nodded slowly, but her gaze lowered as if ashamed. He crouched beside her, wrapping the cloth around her leg where the beam had pinned her earlier. "You saved us both," he told her softly. "Don't hide that." Her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak, but instead she just looked at him, silent. The cave grew colder as the night deepened. Outside, the howls rose again, distant but closer than before. Eli knew they couldn't stay. Monsters would smell blood soon. "We have to move," he whispered. The girl's eyes widened in fear, but she nodded. Slowly, with his help, she stood. She leaned against him as they walked deeper into the cave. The tunnel stretched long and winding, dripping with water lit only by her faint glow. Each step echoed, each shadow felt alive. Eli's hand never left the blade. The girl whispered sometimes, short, broken words. "Hunters, many. Danger. Alone." Each word was heavy, carrying stories she couldn't explain yet. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast, hollow chamber. At the center was a pool of black water, smooth as glass. The air smelled of iron, and the ceiling vanished into darkness. Eli stopped. His instinct screamed at him. Something wasn't right. The girl clutched his arm tightly. The water rippled. Eli lifted his blade. Slowly, something rose from the pool. A head scaled and glistening, with eyes like burning coals. Then a second head. Then a third. The creature was massive, each neck long and snake-like, bodies twisting together in the water. The girl gasped, her glow brightening in fear. Eli's throat went dry. He had fought beasts, but this was something else. This was a guardian. A monster older than the ruins themselves. The heads hissed, spreading wide. Their eyes fixed on the two small figures at the edge of the pool. "Stay behind me," Eli said again, voice steady though his heart thundered. He tightened his grip on the blade, every muscle in his body ready to fight. The girl whispered a single word, one Eli did understand this time. Run. But there was nowhere to run. The chamber had only one exit, and it was already behind them. The monster blocked the way forward, its three heads weaving like serpents waiting for the kill. Eli looked at the girl. She was trembling, but her eyes burned with the same faint light as before. "Then we fight," he said. The beast roared, the sound shaking the stone walls, and the fight for survival began again. The cave shook with the echo of the beast's roar. Eli stood frozen for half a breath, staring at the three heads rising from the pool. Each one moved separately, eyes glowing red, tongues flicking out like fire. The water dripped from their scales and hissed when it touched the ground. The alien girl clutched Eli's arm tightly, her nails digging into his sleeve. She whispered again, "Run." Her voice cracked, full of fear, but her legs were too weak to carry her far. She knew it. He knew it. "No running," Eli muttered under his breath. His blade felt small in his hand. His heart raced, but his body moved on instinct. The first head struck fast, jaws snapping. Eli pulled the girl aside and swung upward. The steel scraped against its jaw, sparks flying. The creature roared in anger, shaking the chamber. The second head lunged, and Eli shoved the girl down just in time, its teeth biting into stone where she had stood. The third head hissed and coiled back, watching, waiting for its chance. Eli gritted his teeth. He couldn't win this fight. Not with just a blade. Not with the girl injured. His breath came fast, but he refused to stop. He had promised himself once never again would he leave the helpless to die. Not after the war. The girl's glow brightened. She raised her small hands, trembling, and light burst from her palms. The chamber filled with a blue-white flash. The monster recoiled, all three heads hissing, blinded by the sudden brilliance. "Go," she shouted, her voice breaking. Eli didn't argue. He grabbed her, lifting her into his arms, and sprinted toward the narrow tunnel at the far side of the chamber. Behind them, the beast thrashed, its tail slamming into the water, sending waves crashing against the walls. The tunnel was small, jagged, forcing Eli to duck as he ran. Rocks scraped his arms and back, but he didn't stop. The girl clung to him, her faint light guiding the way. Behind them, the roars faded slowly, replaced by the steady drip of water. At last, the tunnel widened again into a smaller cavern. Eli stopped, leaning against the wall, gasping for breath. His chest burned. His arms shook from carrying her. But they were alive. For now, the girl slid down, sitting on the cold stone. She hugged her knees, silent. Eli knelt, wiping the sweat and dirt from his face. For a long moment, they just listened to the quiet. Finally, Eli spoke. "You saved us." The girl didn't look at him. She stared at the ground, her glowing hair falling over her face. "You could have left me back there," he said softly. "But you didn't." Her lips moved. The words came slow, broken. "Not leave?" Again, Eli frowned. "Again?" She lifted her eyes, and in them he saw a pain deeper than fear. "My people," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They left me. Said I was cursed, said, 'Monster, follow me.'" Her words cut through the air like knives. Eli understood enough. She wasn't just lost. She had been abandoned, left as bait. He sat back, staring at the stone ceiling. He thought of Earth, of battles he had fought, of the comrades he had buried. He thought of how many times humans too had abandoned the weak, leaving them behind to die. His jaw tightened. "You're not cursed," he said firmly. "They were wrong." She blinked at him as if she didn't believe. "I don't care what they said," Eli added. "You're alive. That means you fight. And as long as I'm here, you're not alone." Her lips trembled, and for the first time she almost smiled. Not fully, but enough to soften the hard fear in her face. The silence grew gentle for a moment. The dripping water became like a slow heartbeat. Eli reached into his pack, pulling out the last of his food, a small bar wrapped in old paper. He tore it in half and handed one piece to her. She stared at it, confused. "Eat," he said. "It's not much, but it will keep you strong." Slowly she took it, sniffed it, then bit. Her eyes widened at the taste, and for the first time she looked less like a ghost and more like a child. Eli ate his half quickly, then leaned back, letting exhaustion wash over him. The girl finished hers slowly, holding the last piece as if afraid it would vanish. For a while they rested in silence. Then Eli spoke again. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. Her voice was soft, broken. "Sira," Eli nodded.
"Sira, my name's Eli." She repeated it quietly.
Eli. The way she said it carried a strange weight, as if she was trying to memorize it. Then the sound came again. Not a roar this time, but a howl, distant, echoing through the tunnels. The monsters outside had not forgotten them. Eli stood, gripping his blade once more. Sierra looked up, fear returning to her eyes. "Don't worry," Eli said, his voice steady. "We'll keep moving, together." She rose shakily, leaning on him as they stepped into the next tunnel. The faint glow of her skin lit the way, casting long shadows on the stone walls. For the first time, Eli didn't see her as just a burden. He saw her as a partner in survival. Behind them, the howls grew louder. Ahead, the darkness stretched like an endless path. But in that darkness, for the first time, trust began to grow. The tunnels twisted like veins under the earth, narrow and endless. Eli moved carefully, every step echoing, every sound making his grip tighten on the blade. Beside him, Sierra walked slowly, her faint blue glow lighting the way. The deeper they went, the more he felt it, the air growing heavier, the silence pressing against his ears. But the silence didn't last. A howl cut through the darkness, long and sharp, bouncing off the stone walls. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. Eli stopped, listening. His gut told him the truth. They were being hunted. Sierra clutched his sleeve, her small fingers trembling. She whispered one word, broken but clear. "Hunters." Eli nodded grimly. He had fought wolves, beasts, even soldiers, but nothing hunted quite like these creatures. They didn't stop. They didn't tire. They followed until you either escaped or died. The tunnel opened suddenly into a canyon split deep underground. A faint light seeped from cracks above, painting the rocks in dull silver. Alien plants grew here. Tall stalks glowing faint green, leaves sharp as knives. Pools of black water reflected the faint light, rippling softly. "Stay close," Eli whispered. Sierra nodded, but her glow made her stand out. Eli cursed silently. They were like a torch walking through shadows. The monsters would find them faster now. They moved across the canyon, careful not to step too loudly. But halfway across, the silence shattered. A rock fell from the ledge above. Eli froze, looking up, eyes. Dozens of yellow eyes stared down at them. "Run," he shouted. The creatures dropped from the cliffs, their skinless bodies twisting, claws scraping against stone. Eli pulled Sierra forward, racing between the glowing stalks. The monsters howled behind them, their voices mixing into one terrifying chorus. Eli swung his blade at the first one that leapt, slicing across its chest. It screeched and fell, but 3 more came after it. He grabbed a fallen spear-like stalk and hurled it, piercing another through the throat. Still, there were too many. Sierra stumbled, falling to her knees. One of the beasts lunged for her, jaws wide. Eli turned, rage burning through his veins, and smashed his blade down, splitting its head. Black blood splashed across his arm. "Up!" he shouted, pulling her to her feet. They ran again, weaving between glowing plants, the howls growing closer. Sierra's glow pulsed brighter with her fear, lighting the whole canyon. "They won't stop," Eli muttered. Sierra looked at him, breathless, then raised her hands again. A faint wave of light burst from her palms, washing over the canyon. For a moment, the monsters froze, howling in pain as the light struck them. But it didn't last. The glow faded, and they kept coming. Her power was real, but weak. She was too young, too tired. Eli knew she couldn't save them alone. He spotted an opening in the canyon wall, a narrow crack just wide enough for them to slip through. "There!" he shouted. They rushed toward it, Eli cutting down 2 more beasts that tried to block the way. The crack led into another tunnel, dark and tight. He shoved Sierra in first, then followed, scraping his shoulders against the stone. The monsters clawed at the entrance, their howls echoing through the narrow passage, but they were too big to squeeze through. For now. Breathing hard, Eli and Sierra moved deeper until the tunnel opened again into a strange chamber. Here, the ground glowed faint blue, covered in alien moss. Old machines lay broken, rusted, half buried in stone. Sierra's eyes widened. She touched one of the machines, whispering something in her own tongue. "What is it?" Eli asked, scanning the chamber. She hesitated, then said, "Old. Home, my people. Built." Eli frowned. The machines looked ancient, older than the ruins above. Whatever her people had done here, it was long abandoned. He wondered if this was where they had left her. Alone, to die among monsters. His chest tightened at the thought. Before he could ask more, another sound filled the air. A low growl. Eli turned sharply. From the shadows, a larger creature stepped forward. Bigger than the others, its body covered in scars, its eyes burning brighter. The hunter had found them. The beast didn't rush. It moved slowly, confident, knowing they had nowhere to run. Its growl rolled through the chamber like thunder. Sira stepped back, shaking, her glow flickering. Eli raised his blade, planting his feet. "This ends here," he muttered. The hunter snarled, circling them. Eli knew more would come. They always hunted in packs, but this one was the leader. If he could kill it, maybe the others would break. He glanced at Sira. Her eyes met his, wide and scared, but he saw something else there too. Trust. He tightened his grip on the blade. "Stay behind me." The beast roared and lunged. Eli swung with all his strength. The hunt had truly begun. The leader beast crashed into Eli, its claws scraping across his blade, sparks flying. The force nearly knocked him off his feet. He gritted his teeth and pushed back, his muscles screaming. Behind him, Sira pressed against the stone wall, her glow flickering like a candle in storm wind. The monster's jaws snapped, inches from Eli's face. He shoved hard, twisting his blade up into its chest. Black blood sprayed, burning his arm like fire. The creature howled and staggered back, but it did not fall. Instead, it circled again, eyes full of rage. Sira raised her hands, her faint blue light glowing stronger. "Eli!" she cried, her voice shaking. A flash of light burst from her palms, striking the beast in its eyes. It roared in pain, thrashing wildly. Eli saw his chance. He charged, driving the blade deep into its throat. The beast let out one last screech before collapsing to the ground, twitching. Then finally still. Silence returned, heavy and sharp. Eli leaned on his blade, chest heaving, blood dripping from his wounds. Sira ran to him, her small hands shaking as she touched his arm. "Hurt," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I'll live," Eli muttered, though his vision blurred. "We have to keep moving before more come." They left the chamber behind, following another tunnel that stretched long and winding. Hours seemed to pass. At last, faint light appeared ahead. Not monster eyes, real light. Daylight. Eli squinted as they stepped out into the open. The sky above was dull gray, the air sharp with cold. But for the first time in days, he felt a breath of relief. Then he froze. Across the valley stood a small camp. Fires burned in pits, smoke rising into the sky. Tall figures moved around, their armor shining faintly. Aliens, Sira's kind, her eyes lit with hope. "My people!" she cried, breaking into a weak run. Eli followed slower, his body aching. But something in his gut twisted. He remembered her words, "They left me." Would they welcome her? Or had they meant for her to die? The aliens turned as they approached. Their faces were sharp, their eyes glowing faint like hers, but colder. They stared at Eli with hatred, at Sira with shock. An older one stepped forward, his armor decorated with strange markings. His voice was deep, sharp. "You," he pointed at Sira. "You still live." Sira slowed, her glow dimming. "Father," she whispered, her voice breaking. The older alien's face hardened. "You were cast out. You carry the curse. Why do you return?" Sira flinched as if struck. Her voice cracked. "I survived. She pointed to Eli. "He saved me." The camp stirred with murmurs. Several aliens hissed low, their eyes narrowing. One spat on the ground. "The human brings death with him. He poisons everything he touches." Eli's jaw tightened, his hand moving to his blade. He stood tall, even as weakness pulled at him. "She would be dead if not for me," he said firmly. But the older alien only sneered. "You should have left her. She is cursed. Wherever she goes, the hunters follow. She brings ruin." Sira's lips trembled, tears welling in her glowing eyes. "I am not cursed," she whispered. "Please, Silence," her father barked, his voice echoing through the valley. He raised his hand and several armed warriors stepped forward. Their spears gleamed as they pointed them toward Eli. "Leave the human to rot. Take the girl. Let the beast finish him," Sira gasped, stepping back. No, I won't leave him." She ran to Eli, clutching his arm tightly. Her small body shook, but her voice was strong. "He did not abandon me." "You did." The camp erupted in angry shouts. Some called her traitor. Others cursed Eli. The warriors advanced, their eyes cold, their steps heavy. Eli tightened his grip on his blade. His body screamed with pain, but he refused to let them take her. Not after all they had survived. He stepped in front of Sira, his eyes locked on the aliens. "You'll have to go through me." he said, his voice like steel. The older alien sneered. So be it. One human cannot stand against us. He raised his hand. Take them. The warriors charged. Eli raised his blade. Bracing for the fight he knew he could not win. Sira clung to him, her glow rising brighter, brighter until it lit the whole valley. Then a sound ripped through the air, a roar, deeper than thunder. The ground shook. Fires in the camp flickered. Every alien froze, turning toward the mountains. Eli's blood ran cold. He knew that sound. It was no ordinary beast. The monster king had come. The valley trembled like a living thing. Stones rolled down the cliffs and the fires in the alien camp flickered wildly. Then came the roar again, so deep it shook the bones inside every chest. The warriors who had been charging Eli stopped dead, their spears lowering as fear spread across their sharp faces. Even the elder's proud expression cracked. Eli turned his head toward the mountains. His stomach clenched. Out of the mist, a shadow moved, massive, towering, ancient. The monster king stepped into view. Its body was like a fortress of muscle and bone, scars cutting across its hide. Its head rose higher than the cliffs, and when it opened its mouth, its teeth glowed faint red like molten iron. Behind it, dozens of smaller beasts followed, their yellow eyes like fireflies in the fog. Sira gasped, clutching Eli's arm so tightly her nails cut his skin. Her glow pulsed wildly as if her whole body shook with fear. The aliens shouted to one another, panic ripping through the camp. Some ran for their weapons. Others tried to flee. The elder raised his staff, his voice thundering. Stand your ground! Kill the beast! But Eli knew the truth. He had seen the monster king's strength in the ruins. No simple spears could stop it. It was not a hunter. It was death itself. The giant beast roared and charged. The ground split under its weight, each step cracking stone. The warriors braced, throwing their spears, firing their strange energy bolts. The weapons struck, but the king barely slowed. With one swipe of its claw, it smashed through tents and bodies alike, scattering warriors like broken dolls. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the air. The beasts that followed poured into the camp, tearing into the fleeing aliens. The elder shouted orders, but his voice was drowned in the storm of roars and cries. Eli grabbed Sira's hand. We have to move! But she shook her head, her glowing eyes wide with determination. No running, she whispered. End it. Now. Eli stared at her, shocked. She was trembling, pale, barely standing. But her voice carried something more. Resolve. The monster king stepped into the center of the camp, crushing fires beneath its weight. Its 3 burning eyes fixed on Eli and Sira. It roared, and the sound shook the air like thunder. Eli lifted his blade, every muscle in his body screaming with pain. He had fought before, but never against something like this. Yet he refused to fall, not while Sira still looked to him. Then we fight, he said. The king lunged. Eli rolled aside, pulling Sira with him as a massive claw tore into the ground where they had stood. Dust and rock exploded into the air. Eli swung his blade, cutting deep into the beast's foreleg, but the wound was nothing more than a scratch. The king roared and slammed its tail, throwing him across the ground. Pain exploded through his chest as he landed. He coughed blood, vision blurring. Still, he forced himself up, blade shaking in his hand. Eli, Sira screamed. She ran to him, her small frame glowing brighter and brighter. Her hands trembled, but she raised them toward the beast. A pulse of light burst from her body, striking the monster king. It roared, stumbling back for a moment. The smaller beasts hissed and shrank from the glow. But the king only grew angrier. Sira fell to her knees, her glow dimming. She was too weak to keep it up. Eli dragged himself forward, standing between her and the monster. His body was broken, but his spirit burned. He lifted the blade high. You'll have to kill me first, he shouted. The king lowered its head, eyes burning with fury. It charged, jaws opening wide. At that moment, Sira screamed. Her glow exploded, brighter than ever before, filling the whole valley. The light poured from her like a star being born, searing the monster king's eyes, burning its flesh. The beast roared in agony, thrashing violently. Now Eli, Sira cried. Summoning the last of his strength, Eli leapt forward. He drove his blade deep into the creature's throat, pushing with every ounce of will left in him. The monster thrashed, blood spraying, its roar shaking the valley. Then it collapsed, shaking the ground as its massive body fell still. Silence followed, broken only by the crackling of dying fires. The smaller beasts scattered into the night, freed from their master's call. Eli fell to his knees, gasping. The blade slipped from his hand. His vision darkened at the edges. He felt Sira's hands on his face, her glow dim but warm. "You live," she whispered, tears running down her silver cheeks. He tried to smile, but the world tilted. His body was too broken. He collapsed into darkness. The last thing he felt was her small hand clutching his. Darkness wrapped around Eli like heavy water. He drifted in and out, his body numb, his chest burning with every shallow breath. Somewhere in that haze he heard a voice, soft, trembling, calling his name. "Eli. Eli, please." When he opened his eyes, he saw faint blue light. Sira knelt beside him, her small hands pressed against his chest. Tears streaked her glowing cheeks, dripping onto his skin. Around them, the valley was silent. The fires were burned out. The ground still carried the scars of battle, but the monster king lay dead. Its massive body sprawled like a mountain fallen. Eli tried to move, but pain locked his body in place. He coughed, tasting blood. "Sira, you okay?" She shook her head, crying harder. "Not me. You dying." Eli wanted to laugh, but the sound came out broken. "I've been worse." His vision blurred again. "You have to leave me. Find others, live." "No." Her voice was sharp now, filled with a strength he had not heard before. "I will not leave you. Never again." Her glow flared brighter as she pressed her hands harder against his chest. For a moment, Eli thought she was trying to heal him, but she was only trying to keep him warm, to keep him here. Her light pulsed with her heartbeat, steady, desperate. Around them, survivors from the alien camp began to crawl out from the ruins. Warriors who had fled now returned, eyes wide with shock at the sight of the fallen king. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. They stared at Eli, the broken human who had killed the beast, and at Sira, who shone like a star beside him. The elder stepped forward, his proud face pale now. He looked at the dead monster, then at Sira. For the first time, his voice carried no anger, only disbelief. "The cursed child saved us all." Sira lifted her head, her tears glowing in the dark. "I am not cursed," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "You left me to die. But he saved me, again and again. He is human, yet he showed me what family means." The camp fell silent. No one spoke. No one dared. Eli groaned, his body trembling. He tried to rise, but Sira held him down gently. "Rest," she whispered. "You fought enough." The elder looked at the human lying broken on the ground, then at the girl clinging to him. His jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then slowly he lowered his head. "Perhaps we were wrong." The words were heavy, almost bitter, but they cracked the wall of silence. Some warriors dropped their spears. Others looked at Sira with shame in their eyes. For the first time, they did not call her cursed. Sira turned back to Eli, brushing the dirt from his face. "Stay with me, please." His eyes closed again, his voice weak. "Don't cry, kid. You're stronger than you think." She shook her head fiercely. "I am strong because of you. If you die, Her voice broke into sobs. She pressed her forehead to his chest, her glow dimming with her grief. The elder stepped closer. His tone was softer now. "Human, you saved her. You saved us. We will not abandon you." "Not anymore." Eli barely heard the words. The world drifted in and out, but he felt Sira's hand holding his, refusing to let go. Time passed. Hours, maybe days. Eli woke again in a tent, his chest bound in strange glowing cloth that eased his pain. He blinked slowly, confused, until he saw her. Sira sat beside him, her head resting on her knees, fast asleep. Even in sleep, her hand clutched his. She had not left his side. Eli's throat tightened. He reached weakly, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. She stirred, her eyes opening. When she saw him awake, she gasped and threw her arms around him. "You live," she cried, tears spilling again, but this time they were tears of joy. "Still here," he whispered, smiling faintly. She pulled back, her small face glowing with relief. I thought I lost you." Eli looked into her eyes and shook his head. "Not so easy to get rid of me." Outside, voices rose. The survivors were gathering, speaking of rebuilding, of moving on. But inside the tent, it was only them, one broken human and one abandoned child who finally wasn't alone. Sira's hand tightened around his. "You will stay? With me?" Eli nodded. "As long as I breathe." Her glow brightened at his words, filling the tent with soft light. For the first time since the war, Eli felt something more than pain, more than survival. He felt hope. In a galaxy filled with monsters, Curses and betrayal, a bond had been forged, stronger than fear, stronger than blood, a human and an alien child, survivors, family, and together, they would face whatever came next.